Welcome back to Movies in a Nutshell. Today we will talk about Tale of Tales, a European fantasy horror film released in 2015. The film is divided into three narratives: The Enchanted Doe, The Flayed Old Lady, and The Flea. The Enchanted Doe starts with the King and Queen of Luntrelles. The Queen is upset because of her inability to conceive a child, and the King summons the best doctors and physicians to cure her. None are able, so the King tries to cheer the Queen up instead. The King invites circus performers to entertain his wife, but the Queen stays upset. When one of the performers is revealed to be pregnant, the Queen leaves her bedroom and throws a tantrum. The King follows her and finds the mess, and he promises to solve her problem no matter what. That night, a necromancer shows up at the castle claiming that he can solve the Queen's problem. The King reminds the necromancer that many have failed, but the necromancer insists that the Queen can have a baby. The necromancer asks the King how far he is willing to go for his queen, and the King replies that he is willing to do what it takes. The necromancer says that the King must sacrifice a life to create another to keep balance. Both King and Queen are willing to take the risk. The necromancer then says that the King will have to hunt a sea monster and cut out its heart. Then, a virgin will prepare it alone, and the heart will be eaten by the Queen. The necromancer promises that she will become pregnant immediately. The King accepts this and goes hunting a sea monster the next day. The King finds it and kills it, but he soon succumbs to the fatal injuries he got during the battle. Some of his men remove the creature's heart, and he manages to at least see it before he finally dies. The Queen personally brings the heart back to the castle, immediately looking for a virgin maid. The maid is ordered to prepare the heart alone. After she puts the monster's heart in the pot, the maid starts unwrapping her corset to find her stomach rapidly expanding. After cooking, the Queen eats the heart in the dining room alone and gives birth to a boy not long after. The maid also gives birth at the same time. The Queen names her son Elias, and the maid names her own son Jonah. 16 years later, Elias and Jonah are very good friends. They look very similar, practically identical, and have white hair. They are extremely close, but the Queen does not approve of the friendship. She tells Elias that he's not allowed to be friends with Jonah, but Elias continues to hang out with him. The Queen threatens Jonah's mother to keep Jonah from seeing Elias, or Jonah will be exiled. However, Jonah and Elias continue to meet regularly. One day, Jonah wears Elias' clothing and manages to fool the Queen. However, she overhears him and Elias talking about ruling together, and he is forced to leave the kingdom the next day. Elias tries to stop Jonah, but Jonah only brings him to the root of a tree. Jonah punctures a hole into it and flowing water sprouts. Jonah says that if the water is clear, he is content. If the water becomes muddy, he is in trouble, and if it dries up, Jonah is dead. The water makes a small spring that the kingdom's people go to, and Elias visits it regularly. One day, Elias finds the water is dirty. He leaves the kingdom to find Jonah and eventually finds his house. The people around the house greet Elias as if he was Jonah, and Elias finds out that Jonah left for the forest and hasn't come back for days. At the castle, the Queen turns to the necromancer to find Elias. The necromancer tells her that she should not have separated Elias and Jonah. He warns the Queen about the balance and says that all things have a cost, and the Queen answers that she is willing to pay the price. Elias finds Jonah in a cave, but a monster threatens and injures Jonah. Elias protects him, and the giant bird-like monster hesitates to attack Elias. In this hesitation, Elias kills the monster and brings Jonah back to his wife. Back in the cave, the monster's dead body slowly turns into the Queen, Elias' mother. The next narrative, The Flayed Old Lady, begins with the King of Strongcliff. He is a promiscuous man who shamelessly sleeps with many women. One morning, he hears someone singing beautifully and immediately wants to meet her. Unknown to the King, the singer is an elderly woman named Dora living with her sister Emma. The King tries to court Dora outside her door, sending gifts through servants. He never sees Dora's face, and that night, the King walks to the sister's door and asks to see her. Both Emma and Dora panic, but they don't want to let the opportunity go. Dora pretends to be a young virgin and requests that the King return in a week. Dora mentions that she will show him a finger to show the King her beauty, and the King agrees. With this new deadline, the sisters try many techniques to make their fingers look young and beautiful. Dora scrubs her finger and covers it with herbs while Emma keeps her finger wet with her own saliva. Dora's finger looks no better at the end of the week, and the King is already knocking at their door. Dora is devastated before she notices that Emma's finger is free of wrinkles. She uses Emma's finger to fool the king into thinking Dora is young and beautiful, who falls for the trick. The king begins to beg to see more of Dora, and Dora agrees to sleep with him on the condition that they have sex in complete darkness. The king eagerly accepts the condition. The next day, Emma is gluing Dora's wrinkles together, and that night, Dora is escorted to the castle in the complete dark. The king sleeps with Dora that night, but when he wakes up the next morning, he finds that Dora is an old lady. He calls her a watch and orders guards to throw her out of their window. Dora survives on the virtue of her blanket being caught in a tree, leaving her stuck. A witch finds Dora struggling and laughs at her before helping. For some reason, the witch forces Dora to drink from her breast, and Dora turns into a young and beautiful woman with long red hair. While hunting, the king finds a young Dora just as she wakes up. The king brings Dora to the castle and makes her his queen. Dora, still remembering Emma, sends a servant with fancy clothes and a letter of invitation to the royal wedding. When Dora reveals her new youthful form to Emma asks how Dora did it. Dora doesn't actually remember how she did it, but she promises to take care of Emma now that she's queen. When Emma is being forced out of the castle, Dora finds her and tells her to keep quiet about their sisterhood, saying that no one will believe that old Emma is the sister of the young queen. Because of that, Emma is adamant about becoming young as well. Dora angrily tells Emma that she had herself flayed. Emma watches the new royal couple getting down and dirty in their bedroom that night. However, the king sees her and mistakes Emma for the old Dora. Emma is forced out of the castle. The next morning, Emma looks for someone willing to flay her outside the castle. She finds one person who will flay her for a price, and Emma fives the man the jewelry Dora gave her. The man brings Emma deep into the forest and prepares his knife to peel her skin off. Emma walks back to the castle, somehow still alive. She is bloody and disfigured. The last narrative is The Flea, and it starts with the King of High Hills. While his daughter Violet is performing, the king notices a flea on his hand, trying to suck his blood. At first, the king tries to kill the pest. However, it doesn't take long before he's more entertained by the flea than his own daughter. The king brings the insect back to his room and feeds his blood before safely putting it in a box. He feeds and takes care of the flea, and the pest starts to grow. Violet asks her father to find her a husband at a meal, not wanting to stay in the castle and be stupid. Violet specifies what she wants in a husband, but the king tells her not to worry too much. When the two start eating, Violet notices her food isn't cooked enough, and the king takes it to his own room. He feeds the food to the abnormally giant flea he has kept as a pet. Soon though, the flea is bigger than the king himself. It falls ill and, despite all the king's efforts, dies. The devastated king orders for the flea's corpse to be skinned and displayed like some sort of tapestry. The king tells his daughter that he will find her husband for her through a competition. Violet's hand in marriage to whoever figures out the animal of the displayed skin is from. Violet is understandably upset that she doesn't get to choose her husband, but agrees with the competition nonetheless. The king finally has the competition announced throughout the kingdom. Many try, and Violet even seems interested in a couple, but none get it right. To the horror of many, an ogre walks into the hall and participates. After smelling the flea's skin, the ogre correctly guesses. Violet is distressed that the ogre won, so she runs to the roof of the castle intending to jump off. Luckily, the king manages to calm Violet down, but she is left with no choice but to marry and lay with the ogre. The ogre brings Violet into its house, a cave high on a mountain. Violet stays there for days, crying and trying to keep her dress clean in vain. The ogre leaves the cave one day, and Violet sees a woman on another mountain. Violet begs the woman for help, and the woman promises to come back the next day with her sons. It turns out they're a family of acrobats, and the sons have set up a tightrope connecting the two mountains. One of the sons successfully saves Violet, and the ogre falls into the ravine while trying to stop them. While Violet is traveling with the family, the ogre ambushes their carriage. The ogre kills the whole family one by one, leaving Violet to run away into another, bigger cave. Violet pretends to be vulnerable and care for the ogre, hugging the beast and permitting him to hug her too. When the ogre allows Violet to hug him from behind, Violet takes the opportunity to slit his throat open. Violet returns to the castle with the ogre's severed head, dirty and bloody, but uninjured. The king was sick, but he made an effort to see Violet. Violet unwraps the ogre's head to show the king and tells him that this is the husband he chose for her. The king falls to his knees and begs Violet to forgive her, and his courtiers kneel in front of Violet too. On Violet's coronation as Queen of High Hills, Elias, Dora, and the King of Strongcliff attend. After the crown is placed on her head, Violet is walked by her father. The new queen and her guests look up to an acrobat walking on a flaming tightrope, and Violet smiles, while watching Dora's youth starts to fade away, and she is forced to flee. Thanks for watching, and we hope you leave this video a like. Subscribe to Movies in a Nutshell and ring that notification bell so you don't miss more videos.